All right, today we're diving deep into the work of Jungian psychoanalyst Dr. James Hollis. He essentially gives us a map for what might be one of the most important journeys we can take in life, finding out who we really are and living a more authentic life. And just a heads up, this isn't about finding some perfect final answer. It's really about building a real, honest relationship with your own soul. So let's start with this really powerful idea from Dr. Hollis. Think about it. So often we define ourselves by what's happened to us, our history, our wounds, the roles we play. But he says, look, that's just the story on the surface. Your true self, it's not that story. It's something much deeper, an energy, a potential that's trying to come through you right here, right now. Okay, so where do we even begin with this? Well, to really understand who we are, we first have to get a handle on these powerful forces that are running the show just beneath our conscious awareness. This right here is a really critical distinction to make. We all tend to think we're our ego, our conscious mind, the part that thinks and plans and feels like it's in the driver's seat. But Dr. Hollis wants us to see something way bigger, the self with a capital S. A great way to think about it is like an iceberg. The ego is just that little tip you see above the water. The self is the entire iceberg, that vast, deep, organizing intelligence of your whole being, guiding you from below. So what are these unconscious forces? Well, Hollis calls them complexes, and his description is brilliant. Splinter personalities. Have you ever been, triggered by something and suddenly you're full of rage or you're acting in a way that feels totally unlike you? According to Hollis, that's a complex hijacking your personality. It's like this little bundle of emotional energy that gets activated and just shoves your ego right out of the driver's seat. And this quote, wow, it really points to where a lot of these complexes come from. As kids, we're like little sponges, and we unconsciously absorb the unlived life of our parents, their secret dreams, their hidden fears, all their expectations. We basically take on their unfinished business and can end up living out a script that isn't even ours, carrying these heavy burdens we don't even know we picked up. And all of this, all these unconscious scripts we're carrying, it eventually leads to a really critical turning point in life, the search for real, personal meaning. And here's the thing, it often doesn't start with some flash of inspiration. It usually starts with a crisis. For the first half of our lives, most of us are running on that first question. We're just constantly reacting to what's outside of us. What do my parents want? What does my boss want? What does society expect from me? But the real journey, the journey toward the self, it kicks off when we find the courage to pivot to that second, much, much deeper question. What does my soul want from me? What is actually trying to be expressed in the world through me? Now, this is a huge, huge reframe. Instead of just seeing something like depression as a chemical imbalance to be cured, Dr. Hollis sees it as a summons from the soul. It's the psyche's way of hitting the brakes and saying, hey, this path you're on, it's a dead end. It's not working anymore. And he's not just talking theory. He speaks from his own experience of a serious depression in his 30s that literally forced him to confront what was missing and completely changed his life's direction. Okay, so this is all really deep stuff, right? But the big question is, how do we actually start listening to our soul? Well, the good news is Dr. Hollis gives us some very concrete, very practical tools to start doing this inner work. And this is where it gets super practical. This isn't just for psychoanalysts. You can start by just looking at your own life. Where do you keep getting stuck in the same old loops? That's a huge clue from your unconscious. You could ask a friend or a partner you really trust, hey, what patterns do you see in me? And of course, pay attention to your dreams and notice where your energy actually flows. Your psyche is talking all the time. We just have to learn to speak its language. And get this, you might think this takes hours and hours of work, right? But Hollis suggests something surprisingly simple. Just 15 minutes. 15 minutes in the morning and 15 in the evening set aside for quiet reflection. You could write in a journal, meditate, or just sit quietly and think about a dream you had. The activity itself isn't as important as the consistency of just creating that quiet, protected space for your inner world to finally have a voice. All right, let's get into what is probably the toughest and maybe the most important part of this whole journey. And that's confronting the parts of ourselves that we'd much rather just ignore. Dr. Hollis uses Carl Jung's famous term for this, the shadow. And basically, it's all the stuff about ourselves we don't want to admit is there. It holds our capacity for greed, for envy, for aggression, for jealousy. And here's the really uncomfortable truth. None of us gets a free pass. We all have these darker capacities inside of us because that's part of being human. So, how do you spot your own shadow? Well, here's the trick. Look at what you project onto other people. Whenever you find yourself getting really intensely judgmental or angry about another person or a group of those people, that's a really good place to start looking. Chances are they are carrying a piece of your own shadow that you've refused to look at. It's like that old saying, we see the speck in our brother's eye, but we miss the giant log in our own. That log is the shadow. And this is why this is so important. This isn't just about navel-gazing or self-help. Dr. Hollis argues that owning your shadow is a profound act of civic duty. It means you stop blaming everyone else, you take back all those projections, and you become accountable for the energy you're actually putting out into the world. It's how you stop your own stuff from becoming everybody else's problem. And that really leaves us with this beautiful final thought, captured perfectly by the poet Rilke. This whole journey to find your true self, it's not about getting quick, easy answers. It's about finding the right questions and then having the guts to just live inside the uncertainty of it all. Because the promise is, if we can just do that, if we can live the questions honestly, then maybe someday we'll find we've actually lived our way right into the answers.